Hello everybody, KT here with Wise Images Photography, and you know what? Today we are going to talk about bird photography. When we think about bird photography, we normally are like, oh, that is so peaceful and so relaxing. And the reality is as a bird photographer, especially a beginning bird photographer, you kind of feel like birds are little itty bitty little missiles that are flying through the air and just have wings on them, right? And they're really hard to capture when it comes to capturing birds in flight. And that is what we're going to go over today, and hopefully that the tips that I give you today are going to help you to take better photographs. So let's get going. Step number one, let's go ahead and talk about setting up your camera settings. Now, I would suggest a faster shutter speed. I want you to think about speed. So what we're going to do is we're going to probably set our shutter speed, I would say 1/2000th or higher. Now, you can get away. I'm going to give a little bit of a caveat here. You can maybe get away with a little bit of a slower shutter speed if you have a bigger bird that is moving slower. But if you're wanting to capture those faster moving birds, you have to get a faster shutter speed, like 1/2000th, 1/3200th, or maybe 1/4000th. Okay, so you got to think about speed in regards to your shutter speed. Next up, you want to look at your aperture. Now, with your aperture, you want to go wide open so that way you let more light in. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat with having a wider aperture. And what's going to happen is when you have a wider aperture, you're going to have more fall off. So sometimes it is a little bit harder to hit your target if you are open too wide. I normally have found this like when I had a 50mm lens, which we know as a bird photographer, we're probably not going to be using a 50mm lens, but when I was using a 50mm lens, I had a lot of fall off, and I was trying to get the picture of this dog, and I was really trying to get the dog's eye in focus, and it just made it really hard to just get the eye in focus because the fall off was so much. So keep in mind that when you open up wide with your aperture, that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. Now on my Big Daddy lens, I want to say it's like a 5 or 5.6, and it ranges up from there. I don't have it memorized off the top of my head right this second, but needless to say, that would be a good place to start normally when you have a Big Daddy lens, right? 150 to 600 like I have. However, if you're still finding it difficult to get those birds, go ahead and set your aperture to 8. And that would be another good starting point. You just won't be letting in as much light. Now, next up is your ISO. In your ISO settings, what I would do is I would set those up to be automatic, because when you think about it, with a bird, the birds are going all over the place. We don't know where they're going to go. So if you're faced this way, your lighting is going to be one way, but when you go this way, the lighting is going to be different, and you don't have time to sit there and fiddle with your camera trying to go, what am I gonna do, right? So if you set it to automatic, your camera will think a lot faster than you will, and it will change. Now, I would also go ahead and max out. Normally there is a setting inside of your wonderful inside of your menu where you can max out how much or how high the ISOs can go. Now, with my camera, I have an old camera. So guess what? I max it out at 8,000. If I had a newer camera, then you know what? I could probably set that a little bit higher, but my technology's old. So I work with what I have. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about using Autofocus Continuous. And if you have tracking mode, then go ahead and add the tracking mode too. Now, the reason why I say this is because if you're continuously focusing as the bird is moving, your camera is going to go and track it, especially if you have those newer technologies. I have like a 3D tracking on my camera, but I have not found it to be the most useful. So I do kind of have my own style. But if you have the newer technology with those tracking features, they are fantastic. I will say that when you are tracking a bird and they're in the sky and there's nothing behind them, it's a little bit easier to track them and find them, and the focus is going to hit them. However, if you have trees behind your bird, you may find that the tracking system may have difficulties between hitting the bird or hitting a tree that's right by it. So just keep that in mind. And one other little bit there is you want to make sure that you are shooting in a continuous burst so that that way you increase your odds, right? Some cameras, like my camera, only has 11 frames per second. The newer cameras have 30 frames per second. So by doing more frames per second, you increase your odds of what you're going to be able to get. Now, if you're like me and you have an old camera, what I tend to do is I will go ahead and have it on continuous mode with my back button focus, and I sit there and I hit the button. I'm like, so basically I'm on and off of my shutter as I'm working through and following this bird. The reason why I do that is because if I keep on going then what happens is my camera gets to a point where it goes, I'm busy thinking and I'm not going to take any of the photos, so hang on for a second. So I try to kind of break it up a little bit so that it gives my camera some time to go ahead and think. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about panning. What you want to do is you want to keep both eyes open. This is a little bit more difficult to do. I've been doing this for a long time now, and I still sometimes will close that eye, especially if the lights are really bright or whatnot. And I'm just like, yeah, I just don't want to deal with the sunshine right now. So I will only keep one eye. But if you can, it's easier to track with both of your eyes. The other thing that you want to do is you want to start practicing with your panning. So you want to practice panning to the right and to the left and at a diagonal going up and diagonal going down, and then maybe just going up and then going down. Practice your movement so that way you're not as jittery. Also, another thing what I would do is as you're trying to find your bird, once you lock on to your bird, I want you to go ahead and start to do the follow and then go ahead and press. Maybe give yourself about a half a second, maybe a second, and then start going ahead and taking your images, because you don't want to just wait and stare at the bird and keep on tracking, because if you just wait for that majestic moment, you're liable to miss it. Now, another thing is just having patience. Having patience, because you know what? This is what's going to happen. You're going to sit there and you're going to stare at a bird, look in his eyes, wait. And then what's going to happen is you're going to say, I can't hold my camera anymore. And then that's when the bird's going to go ahead and take off. And so if you want a pro tip, put down your gear, pick up your phone, and every time you do that, the bird of the year is going to pass by. But in all seriousness, here is a pro tip. Birds will normally poop before they take off. So watch their tail ends, and when you see that poop fly, whoop, that bird's probably going to fly as well. If you learned something new, please go ahead and hit that like button. If you like going on nature photography and fun-filled adventures, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that way you don't miss any other future episodes. I want you to remember that you are awesome. Have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you later, alligator, and thank you so much for tuning in today.